Hello, this is John, welcoming you to the 2043rd edition of the Enfield Talking Newspaper, Dateline 31st. This week are Patricia and myself, John, with Jason on the controls. Many listeners are already receiving ETN on memory stick. The new memory sticks are easy to use and the sound quality of the recording is much improved. Listeners are able to obtain a memory stick player from ETN if they do not already have a device for playing memory sticks. Edition 2047 on Thursday, April the 28th will be our last broadcast on tape. We have around 20 listeners who are receiving our weekly broadcast on tape or CD. Unfortunately, we have not been able to contact these listeners, either because we have no telephone number on file, or because the telephone number we have in our records has changed. If you are still receiving Enfield Talking Newspaper on tape, please make contact with Diane de Jersey to discuss how we can support you in using the new memory sticks. You can telephone Diane de Jersey on 020 8805 6578. Thank you. The items that will come from our local newspapers, the Enfield Gazette and Advertiser and the Enfield Independent, and are their copyright. Our title music is Country Rock Polka, composed by Pat Prilly, Fernand Bouillon, Harry Brewer, and performed by Jean-Jacques Perry, and is used with his kind permission. Local stories include a fight to save an Edmonton post office and approval of the multi-million-pound redevelopment of Chase Farm Hospital. If you are experiencing any problems receiving your Enfield Talking newspaper, please phone Diane de Jersey on 020 8805 6578. She is your listener's representative and will be pleased to help you. Now Peter will read the first item of local news.
Enfield MP, who rebelled against disability benefits cuts, says he's pleased the move has been scrapped. Last week, David Burrows, MP for Enfield Southgate, was one of the first Conservative members to challenge the budget announcement to cut personal independent payments. On Friday, the government announced the PIP cuts would be shelved after the then Work and Pension Secretary Ian Duncan-Smith resigned from the Cabinet. Mr Burrows said he welcomed the announcement that there will be no further cuts to disability benefits and has urged the new Welfare Secretary, Stephen Crabb, to reflect more deeply on those who rely on support. Mr Burrows asked Stephen Crabb in the House of Commons. He emphasised the human dimension in social care, housing and the NHS. And as he, Stephen Crabb, works on future reform, will he then reflect on bringing together all those factors rather than picking off areas such as personal independence payments? Mr Crabb said that new thinking was required to make sure disability payments are fair. He replied, "If we are serious about breaking down long-term barriers to people with disabilities moving into work, we must think in new ways and much more creatively and effectively across different sectors such as social care, health care, employers and education."
A union has launched a campaign to save an Edmonton post office. This follows the announcement of 39 branches being planned to close or be franchised across the country, including the Lower Edmonton Crown Post Office. A petition has received over 1,000 signatures and also gained the backing of an Edmonton MP. Kate Osamore, MP, has written to the post office staff, giving the campaign her full support. Campaigners took to the streets outside the post office on the 19th of March to speak to the public and try and gain more signatures. Clive Tickner, Communication Workers Union area representative, said, "Closing this office will be a major blow to the area, and I don't think a couple of windows at the back of a shop will come near to matching the current service provided." The staff are well trained and have a wealth of experience between them, which will be lost under the company's plans to close this office and find what it calls a retail partner. Mr. Tickner said there are plans for a public meeting where senior post office staff will be invited together to give residents a chance to voice their concerns and air their views on the proposals.
Storm Katie left a trail of destruction in Enfield as gusts of wind up to 100 miles an hour battered Britain on Sunday. A dozen trees in the borough were brought down by the gales. But apart from blown down fences and loose roof tiles, there was minimal damage to property. A heavy branch from a tree in Aldersbrook Avenue, Enfield, was sent crashing down and blocked the road and pavement. Builder Kai Barnfield turned up to resume renovating a house opposite the fallen branch on Tuesday morning and tried to shift it to the side of the road. When he realized how heavy it was, he began sawing the branches to enable cars and the lorry he was expecting to deliver building materials to get through. If that had come down as someone was walking past, they would have been killed outright because of the weight of it, he said. It's also lucky no cars were parked near it. An Enfield Council spokesman said, following the arrival of Storm Katie, the council responded to 12 calls relating to fallen trees. These have now been cleared, or are in the process of being cleared. Thankfully, as of yet, we have had no reports of property damage or people injured in the stormy weather.
Neighbours are facing a 6-week wait to fix a leak causing a river of flooding onto a pavement. A broken pipe is causing water to stream down Nuns Road, Enfield, but Thames Water says it cannot repair it until April the 20th. The broken pipe is on the property of John Scannell, and the leak comes out right in front of Mr. Scannell's gate. He says the leak is causing havoc. The 69-year-old grandfather said, "I keep on being asked if I'm aware there's a river running down the pavement outside my house. It's embarrassing. It is an inconvenience to the general public, yet Thames Water seems to have little concern over the distress it is causing me and my neighbours. There is not enough pressure to force water out of the showerhead, and the washing machine keeps cutting out due to lack of water, so I have to sit by it and keep resetting it while washing my clothes." He claims Thames Water visited on March the 7th to test the stopcock in Nuns Road, but when it was turned back on again, the leak began. But despite engineers visiting 3 times, the problem persists. Workmen came and dug up the pavement to try to find the leak, but failed to find it and had to put the paving stones back together without fixing the problem pipes. Thames Water insisted the responsibility for repairing the pipes lay with Mr. Scannell, as the leak was on his property. The company said it would fix the pipe for free, but Mr. Scannell had to remain on a waiting list while it dealt with emergencies on its own pipes. A statement from Thames Water said, "The leak is on a privately owned pipe which, as it's inside the property boundary, isn't our responsibility. We have, however, offered to repair it fit for free as a gesture of goodwill, but have explained there is a wait period for this. We have advised this customer if he is not happy to wait for us to repair his private leak, we can provide a list of approved local plumbers who can carry out the work."
An Enfield MP has criticised a train operator for providing shocking services in the borough. Joan Ryan, MP for Enfield North, attacked the Govia Thameslink services provided to commuters using the Hertford Loop line during a debate in Parliament last week. Ms Ryan criticised the company, which operates the Great Northern route through Enfield Chase, Gordon Hill and Cruise Hill stations. She said she could run an advice surgery on the train service while I'm waiting for the train, given the number of constituents who approached her on the platform to complain about the lack of customer service and poor train punctuality. Ms Ryan said, "The standard of service on offer to rail commuters in the Hertford Loop line is shocking. When Govia took over the running of the Great Northern routes in 2014, we were promised that their focus would be on improving the customer experience. But there's been a definite drop in the standard of service, and I'll continue to hold Govia bosses to account until we see vast improvements on the line. According to Govia's daily performance statistics, only half of Great Northern trains arrived at their destination at their scheduled time on Monday, March the 14th, with almost 20% arriving more than 5 minutes late, with similar performances through the rest of the week. Ms. Ryan also criticised the low level of publicity the company had given to its consultation on ticket office closures, which is going to affect passengers using Gordon Hill and Enfield Chase stations. She said she has written to the senior management team to raise her concerns. Roger Perkins for Great Northern said more than 86% of trains in Enfield are on time, and the firm wanted to improve on that. He said, "We believe our plans to improve staff availability, train reliability, and the work we're doing with Network Rail to reduce the number of signalling and track faults will make a real difference."
2 men from Enfield have been jailed for a total of 16 years for possessing a prohibited Magnum handgun. The 3.57 Magnum Colt revolver was found, along with bullets and drugs, by unarmed officers from the borough's gangs unit after they had stopped a car in Wellington Road, Bush Hill Park, being driven by Damien Williams, 23, in February 2015. Under the front passenger seat, officers discovered the firearm, as well as 20 rounds of ammunition and a quantity of heroin and cocaine. Williams was immediately arrested and the gun was sent for forensic examination. DNA recovered from the gun linked the weapon to Angelo Michael, aged 30. Subsequent inquiries showed that both Williams and Michael had been making efforts to buy spare parts for the weapon. Williams admitted responsibility for the drugs, but denied any knowledge of the gun. Michael also denied any link to the weapon. After a 7-day trial at Wood Green Crown Court, the two were convicted by a jury and sentenced on Wednesday last week. Williams of 3rd Avenue Bush Hill Park, jailed for 11 years for possession with intent to supply Class A drugs, possession of a prohibited firearm, and possession of ammunition. Michael of Tweedy Close, Bush Hill Park, was sent to prison for 5 years for possession of the prohibited firearm. These men were found guilty of possessing an extremely powerful handgun, said Detective Constable Peter Burdis of Enfield Gangs Units. The use of this weapon would almost certainly have had fatal consequences. The removal of this gun from the hands of criminals has undoubtedly made our community safer. Those engaged in armed criminality or gang activity should get the message. You will be found, you will be arrested, and you will spend years in prison, added DC Burdis.
Jack Abry is one of just 3 scouts embarking on a trip of a lifetime to Madagascar with international development charity WaterAid to help improve access to clean water and good sanitation across the country. The student of Eastbury Avenue, Enfield, rubbed shoulders with adventurer and TV presenter Bear Grylls, who is also the UK's chief scout, at the launch of the expedition. Jack, 19, will see firsthand what life is like without clean water and toilets, visiting areas without access to these vital resources, as well as villages where WaterAid has worked to help transform lives. He left for a Madagascan scout camp recently and will be taking part in a series of activities aimed at raising awareness on the importance of safe private toilets and good hygiene. Following training, he will visit communities to encourage positive behaviour change, as well as supporting calls for the UK government to invest more in these basic necessities. Jack, who is studying geography at Reading University, is chairman of the Community Impact Group at the Scout Association, which is leading the campaign. He said, "Young people across the UK have committed to help change the lives of others for the better, both nationally and internationally. I'm really excited to visit Madagascar to see how Scouts are working with Water Aid there to transform lives by educating people about good sanitation and hygiene, as well as advocating for more investment in clean water and sanitation facilities. It will also be great to develop new ways we can join together with our Scout family in Madagascar and across the world to help get clean water and sanitation for everyone everywhere. Madagascar is one of the poorest countries in the world, with 70% of people living below the poverty line. Nearly 12 million people lack access to clean water, and 88% of the population have nowhere safe to go to the toilet.
Saracens were inspired by the return of their international stars on Saturday as they crushed Exeter 36-18 at Allianz Park.
Means public funds can now be released. In total, the government is set to contribute almost £82 million towards the redevelopment. The Trust is planning to plough between £109 and £120 million into the building, partly funded by selling some land for housing and a school. Chief Executive David Sloman said he was looking forward to the new hospital taking shape over the next 2 years. With the final approval of the full business case, he said, our plans to deliver a secure future and vastly improved facilities for Chase Farm can now become a reality. It is a great achievement to have reached this point so quickly. I would like to thank all those who have helped to get us here. Provisional plans showing how the hospital in the Ridgeway, Enfield, will look were given the go-ahead by Enfield Council's Planning Committee in December. They included provisions for expanding Chase Farm, as well as a renewed commitment to maintaining the Highlands Wing, which was built in 1995 and is the most modern part of the hospital. There will also be world-class facilities for elective, non-emergency care, diagnostics, outpatients, an urgent care centre, planned elective surgery and post-operative care, an older persons assessment unit and rehabilitation facilities. But not everyone is happy. Enfield North MP Joan Ryan has been vocal in her concerns for the hospital as the site's overall footprint is reduced as outlying buildings and wards are brought under one roof. She has warned that Chase Farm will be reduced to a cottage hospital as 16 surgical beds will be lost. Works to prepare the site, including demolition of unused buildings and alterations to some of the internal roads, began last year.
3 Enfield youths have been sentenced after carrying out a string of terrifying robberies on betting shops. In a 9-day period in November last year, the trio, all aged 17, raided 6 bookies in Enfield, Haringey and Waltham Forest. In each robbery, they threatened a cashier with violence unless the takings were handed over. They successfully made off with cash in 4 of the robberies. They were finally caught after CCTV images were issued by the police and the name of a possible suspect was provided to officers. That and CCTV footage from the 6 robberies led to the subsequent identification of the 2 other youths. All 3, who cannot be named for legal reasons, were sentenced at Wood Green Crown Court recently after each had pleaded guilty to conspiring to rob at an earlier hearing. One received 2 years and 2 months behind bars in a youth offenders institution. The others received a 3-year and an 18-month youth rehabilitation order, respectively. Speaking after the sentencing, Detective Sergeant Paul Grimmer from the Met's Flying Squad said, over a 9-day period last November, these 3 youths threatened and intimidated employees at bookmakers across northeast London. They put innocent members of staff in fear of violence, carrying out 6 crimes in a short period of time. Thanks to the help of the public, they have been caught and now have to face the consequences of their actions, he added.
A branch of the Boys Brigade is celebrating after successfully rowing the equivalent of across the English Channel for charity. 16 members of the 10th Enfield Boys Brigade, based in Winchmore Hill, raised money for sport relief by rowing 20.6 miles on rowing machines in their headquarters. The children, whose ages ranged from 8 to 15, completed the row last Monday and so far have raised over £350. Boys Brigade leader Chris Norman said, "We came up with the idea of covering the distance across the English Channel and set that as our target. From that point onwards, the boys were engaged in collecting sponsors and came along on the day of the event, there were sponsor forms in hand and raring to go. It was a great evening."
One of the most interesting additions to the Enfield Ignations youth section is the advent of a girls' team, and two of its architects, Steve and Sinead Corcoran, whose daughters are committed squad members, have big plans for the Tigers, as they are also known. Born at Easter last year and currently coached by Wendy Orme, the Enfield Tigers, despite a far from easy birth, have successfully branched out from their lair and have been more than holding their own against mixed teams, including the likes of Cheshunt, Harrow, Chess Valley, Old Grammarians, Datchworth, Saracens, Chingford and Barnet Elizabethans. Sinead said, "A lot of the girls, having had previous experience of the minis, clearly weren't relishing the step up to the older age groups when contact is the norm, particularly as they would be up against some rather bigger boys. Consequently, there was a real risk of losing them, some of them after just a year in the game. And then that's when we hit on the idea of a girls-only side playing just tag rugby. There is no shortage of counter-attractions and individualistic ones such as ballet and Irish dancing. It can, too, be difficult to break into some of the school netball teams, so rugby is a good alternative." She added, "The most pleasing aspect from our viewpoint is how well the girls get on. The team ethos comes naturally to them. They share the work, and all very aware of each other, and when a player gets tagged, they are quick to support their teammate. Some of them are real naturals with regards to taking to tag. They're fearless, and particularly some of the younger ones, one of whom is a real pocket rocket. Through the good offices of our youth chairman, Harold Pritchard, we managed to recruit Wendy as coach, and she has been on board since October. The long-term goal is to eventually field 2 full teams, and there are plans to stage a festival at the club." On the challenge of increasing the Tigers' appeal, Sinead said, "There is word of mouth, naturally. However, being in the teaching profession, I'm in contact with a lot of schools, and the discussions are ongoing as regards recruitment. We're also exploring sponsorship avenues. For those who are interested in joining the team, contact Sinead Corcoran by emailing her at sineadcorcoran@btinternetcom.com, although I suspect not many of our listeners will want to do that."
Town ensured that they remained in contention for a place in the Ryman Premier Division playoffs prior to their next match at home to Bognor Regis Town by grinding out a 2-1 victory at relegation-haunted Brentwood Town recently. Having endured a frustrating time before that match when they were held to a 2-2 draw by fellow top 5 hopefuls Dulwich Hamlet, Town needed to pick up maximum points at Brentwood to maintain any realistic hopes of going up. And they achieved just that, as goals from Harry Ottaway and Harold Joseph gave Town a win, which saw them climb up to 7th in the table, 4 points behind 5th place Dulwich, with both teams having 5 matches remaining. "It really Brentwood," said manager Bradley Quinton. "The conditions were tough because it was very blustery and the pitch was like a ploughed field, but the lads did exactly what I asked of them. It's always difficult when you are playing against a side who are fighting for their lives, but we did exactly what we needed to do. I was gutted that we didn't win earlier. I thought we deserved to get the victory, but we didn't take our chances. It's important now that we kick on and make a statement in what is a massive game against Bognor." Town broke the deadlock in the 37th minute at Brentwood as Ottaway calmly slotted in the rebound after Corey Whiteley's initial shot had been saved. However, the hosts hit back and levelled the scores 6 minutes into the second half as Andrew Freeman burst into the box before cutting the ball back to leave Marcus Milner with a simple tap-in. The visitors were not to be denied, though, and grabbed what proved to be the winner midway through the second period as Joseph emphatically volleyed the ball into the net, following a fine save from Brentwood keeper Ollie Bowles. Meanwhile, Saturday saw Town twice come from behind to pick up a point in a dramatic contest at home to 10-man Dulwich. Bobby Devine squandered a golden opportunity to put the hosts ahead before Jack Dixon fired Dulwich into a 27th minute lead. But the visitors were reduced to 10 men 2 minutes later as Matt Drage collected a second yellow card for bringing down Devine in full flight. Town initially struggled to make their extra man count, but they levelled the scores 2 minutes into the second half as Mark Kirby drilled a low shot into the net following a corner. Dulwich were back in front within 9 minutes, though, as a swift counter-attack ended with an unmarked Deepo Akinyemi heading in Nyron Clooney's cross at the far post. The hosts powered forward after this and missed a succession of chances before finally getting the equaliser with 9 minutes remaining, when Whiteley kept his nerve to calmly slot into the net from a tight angle after rounding the keeper.
5 people have been arrested after a man was attacked with baseball bats and crowbars. The victim, a 31-year-old man, suffered multiple injuries. Police were called at about 10 o'clock last Monday morning, the 21st of March, to reports of a man being assaulted by a group outside Muss Tyres on Alma Road, Enfield. The suspects, wearing face coverings and balaclavas, fled in a car but were stopped nearby. 5 men were arrested and remain in custody. Police have appealed for witnesses, particularly anyone who took photos or videos. Anyone with any information on the incident should call 101.
We have now reached the end of the first half of this week's recording. If you're listening on tape, please stop your machine now, take out the cassette, turn it over and start side 2. If you're listening on memory stick, click forwards to the next track.